I'm Mr. Ritchie.
And
we are the Educators.
Season 3, Episode 2. It is September 3rd. It is September. I can't believe that. September 3rd, 2020, the year of chaos and pandemic.
Weirdest year ever.
It is a Thursday, our normal time. We're glad, but I mean, it's a mess. The world is a mess.
And it's getting closer to home, which
yeah, it's.
I mean, we kind of knew that was eventually going to happen, or we predicted, I guess, not knew, but
yeah, basically that wedding, right?
God, that wedding, yeah. And I'm going to talk about those numbers in just a second because it's staggering. But in the world, we'll start with high numbers. We'll work our way down.
Yeah, I know it's
1.8 million. So 1,800,000 in 1 week. New cases. This isn't, total.
Yeah, that's just new cases because I mean,
brand new. Yeah.
Isn't there one country that's like topping the charts right now?
India.
Yeah.
83,000 cases today alone. Like and it's a steady climb. I think you had mentioned that they've been on their way up in the 70s just for the last few days.
Yeah, every day 70,000. Next day 70-something thousand. Then today 83,000.
Yeah, 83,000.
And a lot of people that have died from this.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of popular things happening, going around right now, saying like the numbers are inflated, and like the CDC released some new information. And some people interpreted that as saying that like as low as 6% of people only died of the coronavirus. However, if you just get the opinion from anyone used to reading those stats, they're conflating two issues. They're taking the wrong interpretation of an issue. So you get a comorbidity list, things that you had, but it says like, person passed away due to, say pulmonary inflammation. So like inflamed lungs due to, like pneumonia due to COVID-19. So people are reading that as, oh, he's got inflamed lungs, pneumonia, and COVID-19, so he died of COVID-19. Oh, likely. Well.
Oh yeah.
It's a misinterpretation of the information, and so like they're getting their information from the right source, they're just misinterpreting it. And so I had to put that out there because today in the United States, 1 week increase, 281,292. We are still right in the heart of this issue, and it's getting closer to home for us. Maine, again, it's not like huge numbers. Anyone listening in from down south or New York City, any of these hotspots, weekly increases in the state of Maine, 178. Some people may say that that's a real low number. It is a large state. We are definitely getting through with these low numbers due to our low population density and not due to our collective agreement to fight this virus, is what I would say. Right now, we're up over 120 cases from that one wedding event.
Wow.
And 120 cases, and I think 1 death so far. From a wedding event, and it's so unfortunate that this one event has had an event meant for fun, meant for a life of relationship together. I don't wish ill upon those people that did it. I'm sure that they're getting plenty of guilt from everything. But it is a serious thing that it's a mistake that people made that has caused a lot of havoc down the line. And for anyone that's not familiar with Maine and local events, we do have the person who facilitated the wedding, the pastor or the officiator of the wedding, is a pastor, and he brought, unfortunately, COVID-19 from the wedding to his church, to his congregation. So and now there are multiple cases in the church itself. He found out that he had COVID positive test on Saturday and held church services on Sunday.
I know.
And so for anyone that is listening in, I don't think that that's a very fair thing to do to people. And then but he is claiming that this virus is fake. It's just all a cover up. So it's an interesting world out there, and we're going to talk about how to tell the difference between people that know what they're talking about and charlatans or people that pseudoscientists, yeah, and because it's a serious thing, and we saw this information from a Rachel Maddow story, and I know some people hear that name and automatically, kind of shut down or don't want to hear it. And I understand, trust me, with the partisan politics we've got going on, I understand. But in this case, she did cite only local newspapers, and all the information is correct and verifiable. So I think we'll put a link in the description for that, or online for the listeners. But so it's a big deal. And in a school near us, there are reports now in the news that there is at least someone in a school nearby.
Yeah.
And so it's not very many miles between our school and theirs.
And they're trying to contact Trace to find out who's been with this person, and they said, be ready to be contacted. And we're just worried because it's very easy to travel between these towns. And is this person a touchy-feely type?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people, and I think we might have mentioned before, I'm definitely not the let's hug somebody, let's shake hands, let's get anywhere near someone's own bubble. But there are a lot of people like that. And I think we're finding out that maybe that's not moving forward in this life that we have. That's probably not going to be a good thing.
No.
Considering that this, as well as other things that have been around for many years, are going to continue to mutate and change. And
we did have a chance.
Horrible.
We did have a chance to put a damper on this, nip it in the bud. We missed that opportunity, and we have to treat it as such. And avoiding the situation is only going to make it worse. And I do just have to say that if you're on Facebook or Twitter, and it's like someone that they build homes or they repair cars for a living, and they're trying to convince you that this virus isn't real, consider the source. All right. Yeah. And then check to see what the opposition is saying, because you will find that medical professionals will tell you that this is a very real virus. In fact, unfortunate statistic is that we have lost more police officers in this country this year to COVID-19 than every other cause combined.
Yeah.
And so, which is an interesting thing, because I think that that's like a nonpartisan thing that we could all agree on, that that's a really bad thing that just happened. Yeah. And it should tell you right away, this is a very real thing that we've got to take seriously.
It's, I don't know. I don't know how hard it has to hit, how close it has to hit before it really becomes real to some people. I think it would become real to people already, because they'd be like, oh, this is, why would they be lying for such a long time?
Yeah. I couldn't even understand their logic, but it is hitting close to home, because even in individual schools, we're going to have to learn how to deal with personalities. A very big difference in personalities, and people that are good at wearing their mask respectfully, and some people that aren't. Some people that are good at cleaning their surface areas, and then some that don't. And so what's interesting is, I'm curious what's going to happen when people aren't held accountable to the same standard, which is a very real thing that I think any educator right now has to think about in their building.
Yes. And that's actually a rant I kind of wanted to have, unless you want to take that.
No,
rant.
I was trying to make a segue, in for you to take over.
Perfect. Yeah. Yes. So here's the thing. We're at a school right now, and we're doing workshops, and we're trying to set up, we're trying to learn all these different protocols for what we have to do for taking care of things. We're scoping out our rooms. I set up some chairs today just because I wanted to see what is it going to look like when I look out at the population I'm going to have in my room at any given time, which is going to be half of a normal class size, and seeing how it's going to work to get students into their seats and out of their seats, and how I'm going to have to orchestrate that, which row goes first, where they should enter in, this and that. We both put down, we got our markers for how, when they have to line up, and they have to be 3 feet apart, and 12 people 3 feet apart is quite a distance. It had to wrap around the room.
Yeah.
And just that it seems like just to be able to get everybody into that. So we're going through these things in our head about new protocols and how difficult that's going to be, and how it's going to take more out of our class time, which has already lost 10 minutes for each class. And then while you're trying to follow this, and anytime someone's coming to your room, you're quickly putting on a mask, but sometimes they don't have a mask on. And sometimes you walk down to someone else's room and there are many people in their room, all maskless, all laughing, having lunch together, doing this, that. And you're wondering if everyone's paying the same diligence to this as you are, or as the rules were set prior to entering the school. Because we did get pages worth of stuff to read and to follow and stuff. And, it's that whole diligence thing. Are we all keeping the same amount of diligence? And I think we talked about it before. And I said, if a person doesn't kind of take care of themselves, their hair, their clothing, things matching, possibly. Not that it has to be any fashion statement, but you generally can tell if someone's not doing simple hygienic things, then maybe they're probably not going to be taking everything listed that they have to do for PPE and stuff. They're probably not doing everything to a T, because if they take advantage, whatever, I didn't take a shower this morning, I didn't do this, I'm not going to brush my teeth, I forgot to make myself food, I forgot, just simple little things to take care of themselves. If they forget some of those on a normal basis, what else are they forgetting? And we as we're seeing, this virus is sort of a no holds barred. It does it, you mess up, you could mess up once and there you go. And you never know where it is. We're not walking into giant UV light hallways with spraying a mist of Lysol at us. I found a Lysol bottle in my room and I'm going to mist that thing around, but when it runs out, I'm not going to spend the $50 for another one.
Right.
Right, eBay?
Definitely hold on to that thing. No, unfortunately, it is very true. It's just unfortunate that there does seem to be a double standard in the school. There are some people that are taking this really seriously, and there are some people that are not. I think that, so I hung up a sign, or I'm going to be hanging up a sign in the middle of building it. But so during the VMAs recently, Lady Gaga went on stage. And every time that she was on stage, she was wearing a mask. And of course, it was very elaborate, her outfits always are. But she gets up there and she says, wear a mask. It's a sign of respect. And so I kind of screenshotted her saying that, and I'm going to have those words coming out of her mouth pasted on my door as sort of a method to say to everybody, it's more about you protecting others. And if we're all protecting each other, then that's good. But as soon as someone lets their guard down and doesn't care about someone else, it's really a problem. And so wearing a mask, it's a symbol of respect.
And that's going to be hard, because I think it's one of the big things we feel we have to have the kids respect us, which is a challenge already. Respect each other. I have an entire wall about respect. It looks like little stairs going up, and I purposely made it with something that looks like bricks and rocks in the back, so that it looks like steps, like they're stepping up into something. And it has every different layers, get some different sort of respect and everything. But I made it front and center this year because I really want to show respect. And I'm showing respect by actually posting some pictures of music staff that have worked at the school
I love that idea.
And from past and present that students might see, just because I want to show that we're a community working through this. And it is this sort of respect our past, respect our way forward, and respect that there's going to be a lot of people that can help you. Do you respect them? Can you look at their pictures? Can you look at them and respect them? They are there respecting you. They're going to be there fighting for the cause to help you learn. Let's respect them. Let's put a face. And you don't see a lot of faces of people up on walls. So it's just one of those things that I think it's.
You don't see a lot of living people up on walls at school either. Usually it's usually famous people from the past. So I love that project idea. That's great.
So we're going to move on right now to next segment or section or chapter. I think we're going to
segment.
Segment sounds to be good.
Or chapter,
we mentioned season 3, we're doing science in the news. This is something I went on sciencenews.org. We'll be using different websites, stuff like that, but I grabbed some of the some top things I think are interesting for us to talk about for the next 10 minutes. First one, Bering Sea winter ice shrank to its lowest level in 5,500 years in 2018.
Yep. And so whenever I hear, I'm conditioned at this point.
Yeah.
Whenever someone says something that's mind-blowing in science, something that takes very precise measurements, I can just immediately hear the peanut gallery or someone saying, how do they know that? Yeah. We didn't have records. We didn't write down and measure this 5,500 years ago. 5,500 years ago, we were still struggling for civilization and trying to climb out of our, hunter-gatherer state, And so I would like to answer that with, we have very precise instruments that can measure things that we have developed over the course of decades and decades of trying to understand the past.
Yeah.
And core samples is like an art, and the people that devote their life to studying strata in either a core sample of the Earth or core sample of the Arctic ice, anything. It is such a tedious, meticulous job. It is a very interesting thing to look up. So before anyone says, how do we know that? Trust me, we do. Like, we have been doing this. We have mastered it. And second thing, that is a huge, huge deal. And some people might say, why haven't we heard about it till now? It takes time to analyze scientific data. And so this is definitely no less important just because it happened a couple of years ago. Obviously, in 2 years, we're going to probably see that pattern. We're going to see what we have this year.
You always get it like years later, go, oh, by the way, this point 10 years ago, this happened. We only know now because we've been able to take, meta studies over all these different studies and look over everything. And that's the thing. The good thing is that science keeps moving forward, and there keeps being more studies so that later on someone can look at a number of those studies and sort of figure out, it looks like this is happening. And then they make a study, and then of course they can have it refuted, but it gets peer reviewed, and the process continues like that. And those that continuously make it through the peer review process and are replicated, that's how it stands, and that we can actually say, hey, we can believe that, or we can say that is true by what we know is true.
Absolutely.
So when someone says to me, gravity is just like an idea, it's a theory, whatever, and then they fall down, and I'm like, gravity right there.
Yeah. Now, also, so the ice shrinking, why is that important? That means that climate change. Yeah. And I know some people think that's a dirty word, but it's not. It's not in the rest of the world, just in this country. And we got to stop. We've got to stop placating to people that think that there's a choice, in whether to believe in it or not, because no, it's very real. Again, we have very sensitive instruments developed over decades that we can measure. We can measure temperature of the air really well, and we can measure the constituent parts of the atmosphere very, very accurately. You can take an air sample. You can take a tiny air sample out of the middle of a rock that has been solid for 10 million years. And there is equipment that can extract the air out of a bubble inside of that rock.
Yeah.
Trust me, we know that the climate is changing, carbon dioxide is increasing, and this is what happens. Winter ice is important for sustaining life in the Arctic. It's important for global ocean currents. It's part of the Earth, and it is being destroyed. So I don't want to spend all the time. Sorry.
But it is. Yeah. It's true. It is an absolute.
It's a big deal to me. But yeah.
It's an absolute mess that's happened. The next one is steroids reduce deaths of critically ill COVID-19 patients. The WHO confirms. Now
I heard this. I heard this on the way in, and I'm glad you're mentioning it right now because I was blown away on the drive into work today. So that's really cool.
Well, I'm finally they finally work. Yeah.
Right.
No, guys, I'm not on steroids. I'm just on plants. Yeah. But it's that idea that people say steroids and they think steroids, but when people think of muscle enhancing supplements, whatever you want to call that, it's nicknamed steroids, but it's actually testosterone. It's synthetic testosterone. It is synthetic testosterone. It's just called steroids. You get something done with your lungs and you want to expand your lungs, something like that. They give you steroids and it basically helps to expand that. It's just
and in this case too, the steroids actually give your immune system, like it actually fights back against your immune system in this case. The two that because steroids is a family of medicine, and there were two specific steroids that were working. So if you're at home, you somehow have a stash of steroids around because you lift.
Stash of testosterone. Yeah.
Don't think that you're gonna be able to save yourself.
Those that are bodybuilders lifting and stuff like that. That this is not gonna help you. And basically, having a solid, armored body of muscle, not gonna do anything for your internal organs when you're breathing something in and it's attacking you from the inside out.
Tell me about it. It's
just more weight and more stuff on your heart because you have such a heavy body.
The bulk.
Basically, yes. Yeah. To basically get all those that you need, all those muscles need nutrients. So it's even gardening. We'll talk about this some later time, but people wonder why you want to weed a garden. The weeds are taking the nutrients that your plants need. So
it's such a good analogy. I like it.
More muscle takes nutrients that other parts of your body need, and you have to keep feeding those muscles. And people just look at from the outside; they don't see from the inside.
Yeah,
not that you really can, but if you think about the inside, it's kind of a better way to live, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Think about the inside of your body. So I was like probably 23, 24 when I finally understood the human digestive system. That what you ingest is then dissolved and put into your bloodstream, and then after it's in your bloodstream, then your liver and your other organs process the blood in order and things like that. Well, and your intestines, of course, process the food, but part of it. But so because there was this, I always had this big burning question in my head: when I take ibuprofen, how does it know to go and find my headache and fix my headache? And it's not a silly question, but after learning the answer, I realized, when I ingest ibuprofen, it actually gets dispersed evenly throughout my entire body.
Yeah.
But at the pain centers, what you could call weeds, there are these things dangling into my bloodstream that are looking for this specific drug, these receptors that are just looking to pick up this certain chemical, and the ibuprofen masks itself, attaches, and tells the cells, or it tells the pain receptors, hey, stop doing that, and they stop.
Yeah.
And it's not like it finds my headache and fixes it. It's not like a little robot that goes swimming. So I just was blown away by.
Not yet, but if you want to, that's Michael Crichton's book, Micro.
Nice. He's got some good books.
It's kind of like that. It's also a pretty violent thing.
I'm sure. Michael Crichton. Yeah.
So record-breaking gravitational waves reveal that mid-sized black holes do exist.
And this is something that everyone that has ever studied black holes, I mean, it's mostly a theoretical study anyways.
Yeah.
But basically, we know. We know that there are small black holes. We know that there are big black holes, supermassive black
Either
holes.
way, you don't want to get into a black hole. You don't want to get spaghettified. You don't
Spaghettified.
You don't want to, a black hole is like, hey, I want a teaspoon of a black hole. Well, there's so much mass, it's going to pull everything in. Basically, the entire Earth, and like within a matter of seconds, gets compressed.
Just a teaspoon
into
would.
it. And once that gets compressed in, it gets a little bit more mass. It just keeps sucking things in.
It's like a positive feedback, like a hot mic, it's just dumping stuff in. It's like, all right, I'll keep ramping up the gravity.
Does it go to another side, or is there like a wormhole somewhere? People
say that
going through a wormhole, end up some other place in the universe, like so many sci fiction shows. Yeah, we'd love to know if that can happen. Do you think we could make our own wormholes?
Right.
That's crazy.
I think that eventually we could make our own black holes. I don't think, and this could be a separate podcast, Travis speaks, or Mr. Ritchie speaks astrophysics, but black holes, I think, are different than wormholes inherently. But since we can't go get a teaspoonful of a black hole, that's up for argument.
We get the Large Hadron Collider that's been making really, really microscopic ones, I guess, for split second or less than a second. This is like thousands, millions of a second. It lasts any longer, you blink and then
I wonder how long it's going to need before it swallows up the mass around it. And
that's
honestly,
the thing. You get afraid. What are they doing there? Don't worry, they know what they're doing.
Funny story is that in 2008 there was so around this time of year is my birthday. And around this time of year is when the Large Hadron Collider started in 2008. And my wife has a running joke that ever since that thing started up, the world has been a mess. And so she thinks that we are trapped in a black hole thanks to the Large Hadron Collider that fired up around this time in 2008. So
it just happened when we were sleeping one night.
12 years ago.
We're actually not. We're astral projections of.
Yeah, exactly. Like she's convinced this is someone's thought. One of the billions of possible universes. We're just stuck in this one.
Let me take my homeopathy right now. Hold on. Last thing.
Oh, okay, yeah. No,
Stonehenge enhanced sounds like voices or music for people inside the monument. So Stonehenge is basically like an amphitheater in Greece. In Greece, they made these outdoor amphitheaters in stone, and you could stand at a specific place, and your voice will carry all the way to the last seat to the back. And people that visit there, they'll have an actual focus point where someone will sit and whisper, and you can hear them all the way back there because they knew acoustics so well. And that's what it's called. The science of sound is acoustics. And Stonehenge basically was that. So Stonehenge could have been like, hey, going to choir practice, right? So we're going to stand in the middle of Stonehenge and sing. And maybe it was, partly that, partly the Druids worship thing, but
and a partial, it was like a, what do you call it? Like a marker of time, because like on the solstice, like the sun's. So it's a monument to engineering. Yep. It's basically, this is impressive. Like I didn't hear about this until you just said it, but like, of course it makes sense when you're looking at pictures of Stonehenge. But you have to somehow tell the next generation, we were here, this is what we knew. Yeah. And some of these monuments, whether it's the pyramids, Stonehenge is way older than the pyramids, so I mean that kind of wins. But like all of these other things, the Antikythera mechanism found in the ocean near Greece, all of these things are sort of like markers. Here is what we knew at this time. We know that our lives are limited. Future people remember us. And that is an amazing discovery right there.
Crazy good. All right, let's transition on to our first topic, and you're going to take the reins on this.
Yeah, so I had to mention scientific literacy in the age of information. So right now we do live in the age of information, and in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. However, ignorance can rear its head in some weird ways. Ignorance can rear its head in, I simply don't know. but ignorance can also rear its head in, I don't know who to trust. And it matters where you get your information, right? Like that was one of the things that we heard earlier today.
Yeah.
It really matters who you trust for information. And so how do you sift through all of the information? It's part of something that I like to teach, which is called the gift of sift, which I'm going to talk about it in a later episode too, about how to sift through media and find the right places, who to trust, why would you trust them, and things like that. But for this part, I just kind of want to focus on just understanding of technology and science itself. And so we are in a world of technology, and like Carl Sagan said, we exist in a world of technology where nobody knows anything about technology. And so we are just at the whims of whoever is controlling the technology. And if you exist in a democracy in this information age, and you don't know anything about the technology, then how can you trust that you aren't being kind of controlled or manipulated by...
This is what Alvin Toffler from his book Future Shock in 1971 would basically say, we are in a future shock. And I mean, in 1971, he was basically predicting everything that's happened in the past 30-something years, 40, 50 years, and it has happened. And he just says, we can't, we're in shock because so many things are happening that we're in shock, and we can never catch up to the speed that the future basically is. We're pushing forward into the future with technology. We can't catch up. So we still have this like, Luddite sort of like anti-technology mind that's just reacting. We're more reactive than proactive with things.
Absolutely. And right now there are thousands of teachers having future shock, having to change from a paper office, a paper desk, to an online, for instance, Google Suite or something like that, where this year we're trying not to hand out paper. Like inherently, you don't hand people, hey, this might have a disease on it. There you go. So we're trying to go digital. Well, it's a future shock. Like you can do this. And, there are certain programs out there that kids are going to be learning through. In our particular area, we call that Seesaw. And in Seesaw, kids can draw, kids can type, and kids can take a video, kids can take a photo. And it's like, it's too much for some educators. No. I'm used to like raised hands, verbal communication, or written assessment, things like that. Future shock. It's here. It's happening so fast that people can't catch up. And even for us techies, like stuff is happening so fast. I can't keep on top of everything. That's why you have to divvy up your focus. And right now I'm focused on a certain thing. You and I are focused on different areas of technology because you simply can't cover it all. And it's really important that we all kind of figure out how to make technology work for us, because ultimately, are we better off for having this technology? And right now, I think a lot of teachers are going to say, no, we're not. This is worse. This is worse than what it was before. But it's not worse. This is progress. We just happen to be here. And you can't look back and say, oh, instead of this, we should have gone here. Like if it was up to me, we would still be using, 2001 technology. I think that was far enough that I was like, all right, yeah, I can handle this, but that's because of my age. I have an awareness of my inherent bias. And so really the only thing that's holding us back is our behaviors and habit. And like other educators, they're in the habit of handing out worksheets. I'm in the habit of having group work. In STEM class, you have a very small amount of materials, and you have 700 children or something that you have to think about. And you have to really minimize the amount of money you're spending on these things. That's on a normal year. This year, it's entirely different. It's like, depending on where you are, if people are able to get the money in the right area, you might have more money this year because of like the CARES Act and all this other stuff. And it's just, where do you apply it? And that's something I think we're going to talk about later today too, because I think that a lot of people are buying too much. And I think that they got hooked into the whole consumerism thing. But that's that's going to come up in about 5 minutes. But again, I want to kind of come back to the importance of science literacy. Science literacy before before the age of information was sort of like, oh, I heard from an expert. Okay, great. I have a pretty solid understanding of the world. We navigated to the moon before the age of information. Like we did some pretty cool things. Now that we're in the age of information, we have choices. We have all of these different things. We have such an enormous amount of input that it's hard to navigate. And if you think historically with humans, we've never really had an enormous amount of input. You know, things that we're seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, tasting.
Yeah.
Now, you know, but back before, you know, again, like we were talking about Stonehenge, you know, 5,000 years ago, you know, I'm hungry. Let me go out and hunt something. I'm going to expend, you know, perhaps, you know, 2,000 calories chasing down a wild animal. I'm going to go and try to not graze, but like go in and
gather things.
Gather, right? Yeah, gather. I'm going to go gather wheat. All right, well, great. You're going to be out there for an hour, stripping the seeds from the stalks, gather it in a basket. Then you got to process it. And it's not an immediate thing. Well, now we have everything right available. Instant gratification nowadays. Everything that we need is available. I can hop on Amazon, buy anything I need, solve a bunch of problems that I think I need to solve. And it's sometimes you've got to sort of step back and realize that humans have fallibility. There are things inherently inside of a human being that make them make bad decisions sometimes. It is the ability to understand that and process that and make it fit within your life that I think will help you move into the future, because we do have an issue with who to trust, what to trust. We can be easily misled. And that was a really big thing that Carl Sagan talked about. I do mention him a lot in the podcast because he's definitely a huge influence on me. But
the greatest science, basically, educators and facilitators basically for the world. So he kind of popular.
Everybody kind of knows him from the Voyager program, which is still running to this day.
Yeah. And Cosmos.
And Cosmos, right? Those are the two biggest things that he, you know, is known for. But he's got so many books. He's got fiction books. He's got nonfiction books. You know, it's an interesting thing to be a writer of both. You know, like if you read Cosmos, the movie was fantastic, but the book, you got to check that out too. I mean, that's, you know, so much more detail. But then he can go on and talk about I think it was a candle in the dark, you know, science as a candle in the dark. That was one of his last book, I think, and I read that most recently. Because science and understanding science is important. We have to understand that the slow progress of understanding the world around us is necessary for us to advance into the future.
Yeah.
Science can't be there alone. Humanities have to be there. Like science tells you that you can clone a dinosaur, but humanities tells you why you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And ultimately, why do we need science? Why do we need this advancement? We need to ride off this planet. And this planet is eventually going to go away. We've talked about it before. We'll probably talk about it a few times.
Isn't there an eventual heat death of the universe? That's actually a song from a band that I listen to. And
nice, yeah. Well, and so everybody either thinks of the big freeze or the big crunch. Either the universe will fall in on itself and recompress into a singularity, or it will continuously, which currently it is, expanding until it is cold and lifeless and nothing can exist. So, you know, you say, well, why even bother at all? Well, who knows? You know, whatever humanity evolves into, or whatever you know, maybe we evolve beyond that and we can find a way out of that. And right now, there are people trying to get off the planet. And if we sit here and keep continually having to figure out how do we get people water, how do we get people food, we're never going to make it off the planet. And so the time is now. Let's believe in science and let's get off this planet.
Let's get off this planet. That is going to be in basically in another podcast. We're going to totally talk about that. Probably
wait
like a
to, yeah.
multi-part series and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to move on to this segment, which is about consumerism and materialism and what I call the trash culture of America. What I mean by that is the a culture that disposes of a lot of things. Everything can be disposed of. Everything you can use this microphone for a little bit, then it's broken, it's made out of metal, just recycle it, throw it away, trash it, whatever. I mean, I'm glad there's things that last a long time, but.
Right. And most people don't even think, oh, I can recycle that. It's trash.
Just throw it in the trash. Someone else is going to deal with it. It's someone else's problem. And how marketing has basically run rampant in our society to a point where everything's being marketed to everybody all the time. Everybody's they're saying to them, you need this, you need that. And it's working and people are buying it. And whatever it is, it's a one-trick pony device or something. They get what they can out of it quickly, and then it's throw it away. Where's my next thing? Market something else to me. Wow me again. And so we have phones that are being constantly, new phone comes out every 6 months from like all the major companies, sometimes even faster. Give me new. And it's not like the internals are much different than the previous models. It's just they have to market something new. They have to make something new. They have to there's workers working. They need to come up with something that's different. It needs to be marketed. They need to create trash out of the past. The new thing makes the old thing look like trash. Yep. And they need to keep doing that. And then it gets to this point where it's quantity over quality. We need to keep this process going. And you know what? Let's speed it up. Let's make a phone every 3 months. Let's make people want these things and continuously people are working. Let's ramp up the speed we're working. Let's put out more product. Let's see if we can make more money, market more, get deeper into what people need. Get them to write our reviews for that, for us and promote our business. And then we can sell our business. Then we can move on to the next thing. It's just that thing that they think trust is able to be bought, and it is being bought. So there's no emotional investment that people are holding on to anything. And I remember being younger and getting a guitar and being like, that guitar is going to be so much to me because I'll be able to make up all these ideas and things that I can't do with words. I can do with my fingers and with my ears. I can hear sounds in a different combination. And maybe that's going to be something that I can help convey what I'm feeling to somebody else. And I didn't, when I first got a guitar, I was like, I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to figure out how to play this thing and try to do that. And there are people that collect guitars. They have hundreds of guitars. And to the point where it almost doesn't even matter. It's more collecting rather than it is about really caring about what the purpose of a tool. To me, all music instruments are tools. These keyboards back here, these are tools. They're two different sounding things, and I use them for tools that I do when I have to play out.
And everything does have a life cycle, but you can extend the life cycle of your tools, your items, by taking care of them. But that's not encouraged in this culture that you're talking about. It's the antithesis of what is being talked about there. It's planned obsolescence is what's occurring.
It's also the fact that there's no respect for items anymore. So people don't have respect for someone else's stuff. And the materialism is that we become these collectors of trash. So some people will collect things and it's trash.
Yeah.
And they have a hobby that basically creates an identity for them. So, and what that means is like, there are people I've met, I was 6, 8 years old, possibly. My father said, someone gave me this guitar. I don't want this guitar. Here you go, take it. And I just basically taught myself. And there was anyone there to help me. And it just, this makes some decent sounds. I kind of like the way these sounds work together. And I kind of fleshed it out, how to use this tool. But I didn't take this identity that I'm a guitar player. I know people later in life, they purchase an instrument and I play this instrument. That's my identity. They probably haven't seen me live. I play a lot of different things, but I don't identify with anything. I don't even want to be called a musician, because to me, it's like a slang word. Musicians have a connotation of being people that are either on substances, they have some sort of substance abuse problem. They're overly emotional and can't handle their emotions. They usually lack certain social skills, and they don't take care of themselves. Basically, they're like freeloaders, and I'm not that at all. And it's why I music is a tool. I can do it. I enjoy it. I get something out of it emotionally, and I seem to affect others with it emotionally. Maybe not everybody, but I also have a job where I have to do it, and I keep getting hired year after year. I've been doing that professionally for over 20 years. So I guess I get something going on with that. They wouldn't be calling me if I didn't. But it's that this whole thing. And I remember a long time ago, there's a punk rock group called Fugazi, and they had a T-shirt, and it said on the front of the T-shirt, "This is not a Fugazi T-shirt." And on the back, it had this quote that I really like. It says, "You are not what you own."
Yeah.
So basically, no matter what you own, you are not that identity. You can buy a fancy watch. You can buy a Tesla to drive. You can buy all this stuff. You are not that. You are someone that owns that tool, that material that doesn't define you. You cannot have material define you. You're human.
Absolutely.
You're complicated. You've got lots of different emotions. You have different thoughts. You can make rational, critical thoughts. You are not, nothing is your idol. Nothing is your focus. Nothing creates your identity. You create that. This is something of all your experiences put together, your environment,
right.
nature, nurture.
No objects necessary to make an identity.
Yeah, and I know people like that. They like the new sneakers.
I know.
I wear only this brand of clothing, and it's just for me it's a bunch of tools. And if I notice that I just don't feel right like that, like I'm wearing right now, I don't wear glasses. Everybody, these are computer glasses. I got them on sale from a place called Gunner Optics. I believe it's in Germany or another country. And they're normally sold to gamers. So gamers play this, they're playing games all day. It cuts the blue light out, although on my computer, I already have a program called f.lux that takes away all the blue light as the day goes on. But I wear these anyways, and it keeps my eyes from straining. It does keep so that there's not a lot of airflow towards there, so they stay moist and they don't get dried.
And the blue light also is something that interferes with the human sleep cycle. What do you call the circadian rhythm? And so if you're struggling to go to sleep at night, honestly, you got to take a look at your blue light intake, and that's actually a good point. I think that
and that's a tool. Yeah. I'm not defined by this. Like I wear blue light glasses because I have to be. This is my style, so like that. No, this is something that it hurts my eyes. When we went back to school, my eyes were like kind of getting ready every single day. I just adjust to this artificial light all the time, and I'm actually probably going to be wearing these or some other ones that are clear, just to get rid of that blue light, and maybe also to protect us from the germs that could possibly be getting towards us before our super heavy-duty masks come in.
And something really good about your studio. So in your studio, you're surrounded with windows for that natural light. Yeah. Obviously, right now we're talking at night, so that doesn't really help out. But no, wanted to mention in my world the brand identities presented themselves as, I'm a Ford man or I'm a Chevy man, and it's like they're each individually good at doing something, and therefore like don't care about what the brand name is on the product. Care about how it performs. Like, and I've always never cared about brand identity because you got to rise above that because you are yourself, not a brand.
I just worry in closing about this is about the potential havoc wreaked upon self-worth and mental health for focusing on these things. Because when that one thing you have no longer lusters the way it once did, or you basically something forces you not to like it, and then you realize how much of your worth was based upon that object. It's a big part of you. It's a big part of your looking glass self, and you can look that up on Google, to lose over an object. because you associated, you identified with that object. And that's not a good thing. For young children, yes, we want to see they have some empathy when they identify maybe with an inanimate object or something like that. And that's one of those things in early childhood. But for adults, when they just associate, I'm a this, I do this, I identify as this, and that requires me to have this material. Nope, not having it. At least I'm not in my life. I'm not going to be like that. And I've never been materialistic, and yet I have material, but they're all tools. And most of the time, it's stuff that's been given to me that I just take care of diligently. And that's the good thing. All right, last segment is our closing. What did we talk about today?
So today we covered a lot of stuff. I mean, unfortunately, we are still in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah.
So as always, we talked about the numbers. Huge increase in India today, huge increase in Maine. We're making national news in Maine for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately. We did have a little bit of a rant about the double standard in schools, and I think that that's an important discussion that will become apparent in the next few weeks as pretty much the entire country returns to school. And in large cases, in the entire world. I mean, a summer vacation is actually a common thing across the world. It's not just happening here. Obviously, there are some schools in certain places choose something different, but that is something that's very common. And one of the reasons why we have a summer break, one of the reasons why we have a winter break, spring break, is actually disease control. That was something that was input into the school system before. That is something important to remember. We did talk about some science news. Unfortunately, the Bering seawater ice shrank to its lowest level at 5,500 years. There's very good science to back that up. A specific set of steroids, 2 is what I heard on my way to work. Yeah, that reduce deaths of critically ill COVID-19 patients because it gives their immune system a break, basically, and saying, hey, you should chill out. It gives the inflammation, like it shrinks the inflammation, which is unfortunately a huge part of this disease.
Yeah.
Record-breaking gravitational waves reveal that mid-sized black holes do exist. Huge stuff if you like astrophysics. If you want your mind blown, try to consider what a black hole is. Go Google it and just try to understand what a black hole is. Hopefully it'll be a rabbit hole that you fall down, because I've fallen down that rabbit hole a few times. It's like, all right, a few years ago I really studied what a black hole was, but what is it again? Like, let me go look at that again. We also learned that Stonehenge Monument enhanced sounds, especially specifically voices, probably because 5,000 years ago there wasn't probably much more, or music. Probably percussion, maybe. I don't know. 5,000 years ago, was there anything else for?
Yeah, they might have a drum, some animal skins, stuff like that. Someone might have carved out a flute. I think they found a flute that was 3,500 years old on somebody.
Yeah, so perhaps. Yeah, and from 5,000 years ago, they could have had a lot of technology just made out of wood or
that wouldn't survive. Yeah,
that doesn't survive. Yeah, and so perhaps more. A really big deal, because it says that Stonehenge was engineered. It's not an accident. It's engineered for multi-purposes. So we did talk about scientific literacy in the age of information. Are we better for having technology? Up for debate, I think, yes. The importance of knowing something about science and technology during this time. Then you mentioned consumerism, the trash culture of America. We got to be careful that we don't fall into consumerism and be or have our lives branded by
don't have your identity through material or anything you own like that. You are not what you own.
Yep, absolutely. You are not what you own. That's a great way to end it, I think.
So next week we're going to be doing some other things, and hopefully that's going to be our 1 week prior to actually school opening for the students. So
that's right.
It might be a little on edge.
Yeah, let's see how that goes.
Yeah, if we can make it there. We're hoping we can make it there.
That's right.
Well, I'm Mr. James.
And I'm Mr. Richie.
And
we are the educators.
Have a good night.